you answer that one.
Okay, guys, thanks for joining AdBuzz. I'm at John Street today, 172 John Street if you ever want to visit these guys. Guys, can you introduce yourself for us?
Angus Tucker.
Oh, Stephen Jurisic. We're both co-creative directors and partners and founders of JohnSt.
Great.
Arthur Fleischman, who's the third, and there's actually a few more partners. The president, he might show up halfway through the interview,
So we'll digitally edit him in.
Great.
Okay, so could you guys just define John Street for us? What kind of work are you guys doing? What's John Street all about?
You want to take that one and then I'll build on it?
Okay, what kind of work are we doing? What we're trying to do is the best work in the country, and then if we do the best work in the country, the world will take care of itself. Yeah, I guess, I don't know, that's kind of the long and the short of it. We're trying to do, our mission is to be unignorable, and kind of the long version of that is to make our clients' brands unignorable. So what that means is advertising for most of us, including, I think, Stephen and myself, is pretty ignorable. It's stuff that actually we actively try to avoid, whether that's, you know, in the digital space or in the traditional space. You know, it's why PBRs are doing what they're doing. We're literally actively trying to avoid advertising. So what we're trying to come up with is unignorable work that demands to be looked at, and not by screaming at you or being ubiquitous. You know, like whatever Bell or something like that. Now I'm taking a shot. I'm not taking a shot at Bell or anything like that. But, you know, trying to come up with ideas that you actually want to look at and you want to engage with. So that's essentially what we're up to.
Right.
And I think if you look at our work, and hopefully that people, by you doing this interview, look at our website and stuff like that, is that we try to solve the problems that are right for each brand, you know. So if Angus talks to the unignorable thing, we're doing it pretty much across all the platforms, as you've probably seen with our Stanfield's work, or Warchild work, or Auto Trader work. It's, you know, people come in with a problem and we try to think the best way to make it work or connect with the consumer, not based on, hey, we should just do the traditional model. We're kind of just doing what we think is right. And then the filter is it unignorable, and will I be entertained by it? Because 95% of everything is crap.
Yeah, we
95-5 rule.
Yeah. It's not quite the Pareto rule, but it's a good.
The what rule?
The Pareto, Frank Pareto, 80-20 rule.
Oh, that's
80% of your volume comes from 20% of your consumers.
That's right. Or work being done. Yeah, same thing. If you guys could define the culture of John Street in one word, I'm only going to give you one word. What would it be? You can each have your own word though.
Collaborative.
smart.
Smart. Do you want to change yours?
No, I think they both work. But I really like smart too.
And what would Arthur say?
Arthur, unprofitable. No, just kidding. Yeah, you know, I don't know. He'd probably say one of either.
I think so. I guess everything has to be. I mean, the way we work is collaborative. You know, from internally with partners, and at minimum, everything has to be smart. There's a Bill Bernbach thing, you know, he always used to say, you have to be able to show your work to your mom to be proud of it. And I think that comes down to the smart meter a lot of the time. So we measure ourselves on that a lot of the times.
Arthur, I know what he'd say. Arthur would say effective.
Effective?
Yeah.
Smart, collaborative, and effective.
Yeah.
Because
if it's unignorable and it's smart, it's going to work. And we do actually put a lot of effort into making sure that the stuff that we do for our clients actually makes a difference in the marketplace.
Right.
I think, you know,
it's a business.
Because that's actually what we're in the business of doing, but it's also good business to actually prove that creativity works and actually solves problems.
Cool. What do you guys think defines the culture of an agency? What does it actually take?
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, do you want to go first?
Here's where I'm leading. Is obviously Taxi was just purchased by WPP, and we're going to lead into a question that would ask, what are the pros and cons of being owned by WPP? And obviously John Street is separate from that. So what does it take to define...
For the time being.
Depends on how unprofitable we stay, right? So back to the original question is, what defines the agency culture?
Well, an agency's culture, I think, I like that expression. The fish stinks from the head down. The corollary of that would be the fish. The flower smells nice from the head up. No, what I'm trying to say is that I think that if you're dysfunctional at the top, or you're mean, or you're demotivating, or you're all these kind of things, if that's kind of the general feeling coming down from the leaders of the agency, it's going to just seep into every corner of the agency, and it's not going to be a fun place to work.
Yeah.
So I think definitely the attitude of the leaders of the company completely has an effect on the overall culture of the place.
And we've been together, Angus and I have been working together, 14 years?
98.
Arthur and I have been working together for 18 years. Emily, about 14 years. Angus is married to the managing director, so we've been together.
We didn't meet at the agency. Yeah. It's totally above board.
So I think that's part of it. Yeah, of course, top down, but I think the leadership group is a tight group, and we've known each other a long time, so there's an inherent trust and respect, and I think we permeate that down into the culture.
Yeah, sure, that makes sense. So on to the next question would be, what are the pros and cons of a large takeover? Well, it's not even a takeover. I guess you could be selling, but obviously the deal will get sweetened at some point. What are the pros to a deal like that?
The Learjet.
with the name on the side and the tail.
Gold Learjet. Paul of okay.
That's a pretty good pro. But maintenance costs on Learjets and the cost, it's not all gravy. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. If you are an owner of the agency and you're bought by WPP, I think that the pros are pretty obvious.
And obviously, I don't mean just WPP, because there's
whenever you're purchased by another agency, the guys who actually own the agencies that purchase do pretty well, I would imagine. I don't know. I mean, that the press release is probably synergies, and we can tap our global infrastructure to bring even greater ideas and efficiencies to your business.
It sounds like one of the media releases
I received. I think
there has to be some pluses to resources, but at the same time, then you have to give that money to those guys every year, and you're not giving it back into your companies. You have that. You have to give 15%.
I think it goes back to what you said is the top-down leadership. Where Stephen and I have met. We met almost a year ago now, and did an interview for my school project. But one of the things that you had mentioned then is that it's nice to be able to have top-down culture, and that's really what the culture is, and it comes from who you are, not from what a corporate standpoint is. Yeah. So that's really good.
Yeah. So I don't know. But Taxi, I would not bet against them. They are a really, really strong company, and they also have a really, really strong culture. I've never worked there, but we have people who work here who've been from Taxi, and it's probably employed 50% of the advertising industry over its time. They know what they're doing. They're really smart. They're really smart people who work there. So I think if anyone can figure it out, they can.
Yeah. So let's move into some advice. What's the best advice that your parents have ever given you?
You got yours?
Stay in touch with your best friends.
Okay, that's a good one.
Do what you love and you'll be rich.
Really? That's a good one.
I wish I heard that one.
Do it, yeah, but it's true. It's true.
It is true. Because no matter how much money you make, you're having a good time.
That's right. What's the worst advice, not from your parents, but what's the worst advice that you've ever received?
Also from my parents. It was when I finished school and I came home at Christmas, just before I just finished my last year at school, and my dad said, "Okay, Ang, what's the plan?" And I went, "Well, I think I'm going to go tree planting for a couple of months, and then I think I'm going to go out west and just kind of, I don't know, do something, just travel around." And he said, "Come on, fun's over. I'm going to get to work."
Man.
So I think, time to get to work when you're 22 and get going in your career. I mean, if you actually know what you want to do when you're 22 years old, it's probably pretty good advice. But I think I got this advice from a guy on a boat in Morocco who actually gave me a really good piece of advice. I was talking to him for about half an hour, but he just said, in your 20s, just figure out who you are and what you want to do. And then once you're in your 30s, you can really kind of apply that. Use your 20s to kind of experiment and figure out what you want to do. And that really worked for me.
That's cool.
Worst advice? I think I've heard it from a few people, but when they sort of tell you to follow the rules. But literally, I think I remember these digital portfolios, or I remember being in school and stuff like that. It was like, this is the way it should be done.
Yeah.
And I think if you think that way, you just won't do, you won't take chances and things like that. I can see this, like why someone would say that, but it just inherently stifles you.
Well, that's good, because that leads me to my next question: is what advice do you guys have for juniors then, people coming up into the industry?
Wow.
I got one. Ask yourself whether you really, really, really love advertising.
Going,
You better love advertising. I don't know why I love advertising. It's some character flaw in me, but I realized it's not like I didn't even know I wanted to work in advertising until I was about 25, and then I was an account guy, and then I changed into the creative department after about 4 years. But I had no idea, but when I look back on it, I always realized I was quite fascinated by advertising. I didn't know why.
Yeah.
And I like it. I like that it's so public. I like that millions of people see it, so maybe that's some sort of ego thing going on there. I like the fact that, what you actually think of can have such a kind of massive impact on not only the company that you're working for, but on people. It's like, when you go to parties and people say, what do you do? Or we're advertising.
It's got a romance to it, doesn't it?
And you mention, Cliff Your Ride or Wiserhood or something. They go, oh, wow, I like that. That's,
So let me ask,
what I like.
do you think, is it possible for a student fresh out of school to know if they love advertising yet? Is that possible? I mean, you talk about you've always loved it, and that's kind of where I'm sitting.
Yeah,
I've always
but I didn't know I always loved it.
Yeah.
I didn't know but
is it possible for them to know?